Well, officially, welcome to all of you. We're so glad to have you with us this afternoon as we talk more about the Business and Industry Leadership Team Academy. I'm Hope Cotner. I'm president of the Center for Occupational Research and Development, or CORD, as we're most commonly known as. And we are actually leading what's called the Pathways to Innovation project, which is funded by the National Science Foundation's Advanced Technological Education Program, which is designed specifically for STEM programs at two-year colleges. Some of you are probably very familiar with the ATE program, and others of you may be new. So welcome to the conversation. The ATE community is a great group of individuals and colleges across the country who collaborate across disciplines and across states. This afternoon, we're going to give you not only details about the BILT Academy and what can be expected by participating colleges, but about the BILT model itself. So everyone has at least a basic understanding of what BILT is all about. But before we do that, just want to introduce my panelists for this afternoon. I'm joined by Dr. Ann Beheeler. Ann is what we like to refer to as the mother of the BILT, the BILT inventor, and she'll talk more about BILT's roots over the past couple of decades when we get to her portion of the program. But we're thrilled to have her leading us as principal investigator of the Pathways to Innovation project. Debbie Davidson is our technical assistance director at CORD, and Debbie is my partner in crime on lots of Pathways projects, and I'm thrilled that she could join us today as well. Debbie has almost 20 years of experience at Gateway Technical College in Wisconsin, leading their workforce efforts, and has been sharing her expertise with us at CORD for the past several years. So welcome to Debbie as well. And also a big thank you to Alicia and Holly from RIT, who are serving as our interpreters today. So let's get started. Obviously, we're here today to talk about the Business and Industry Leadership Team Model, or BILT. So what is it? We like to refer to BILT as a Business Advisory Committee on steroids. One of the key elements of BILT is that it offers a structured, repeatable process that can be used by any technical program. And it really is a model that puts employers in a co-leadership role. And we'll talk more about in a minute about what that really means. But ultimately, it's about increasing engagement with your programs. We're often asked, how is the BILT model different from a traditional advisory committee? And it's really the frequency, specificity, and depth of input of that conversation that we have with employers, combined with an industry-led governance structure that sets BILT apart. BILT really builds upon the industry expertise as subject matter experts of our employer partners and the teaching expertise of faculty to collaborate to ensure that our students are workforce ready. And that's really what we're all here to ensure is happening in our communities. And now I'm going to pass the baton to Ann and let her tell you about the roots of the BILT model and more about the essential elements. Ann?
Thank you, Hope. I appreciate your time, everyone, for participating with us this afternoon. As many innovations, the BILT model was created out of necessity. Those of you who know a lot about IT and were around 2002-3 timeframe are aware that there was a big cutback in terms of IT employment across the nation after the dot-com bust. And guess what? That's exactly the time that I was hired by Collin College to grow IT enrollments. So having worked in business and in academia during my lifetime, I decided to reach out to the businesses in the DFW area, which is where the National Center for Convergence Technology is located. I actually reached out to them and invited them to a very expensive breakfast of donuts and coffee, because that's what I had in my budget as a new dean. And they came together, and the rest is history. They basically helped me reimagine the future of IT. And we went to the National Science Foundation for funding to prepare for that future. We had a very wonderful situation in that there were layoffs for a while. So we actually had time to develop curriculum for the next new wave of IT employment across the United States. So we established the BILT model through working with business leaders across the nation once we were funded through our National Science Foundation grant. And we use these folks to help us to determine the knowledge, skills, and abilities that a workforce-ready graduate needs to have. We know also that the industry folks, business and industry folks, use terminology like knowledge and skills, where we typically talk about things like learning outcomes and program outcomes, kind of the same things. But part of what the BILT model does is it's the connector for the various terminologies that are used by business and education. The model has now been implemented by at least 70 colleges. In fact, it's getting really close to 80 that we know about. And I'm often on calls and I might say something about the BILT and people on the call will say, oh yeah, we implemented that too. So I really do not know how many implementations there are, but there are many. I will point out that the Department of Labor and the Department of Education recognize BILT as a very leading model, an important leading model for strategic employer engagement, which seems to be something that we really need for workforce programs across the nation. And we launched the Pathways to Innovation project to support the BILT model through the BILT Academy so that we could scale the model even further. Next slide. So what's all this about the BILT? What's involved? Well, this is very brief, but essentially we want the businesses to co-lead our programs. This consists of their annually prioritizing the knowledge, skills, and abilities that they want graduates to have 12 to 36 months into the future. It's important that we look into the future because it takes us a while to address any kind of changes that they may want. We are, in fact, using a structured, repeatable, and electronic voting process now that we use first against a pro forma list of knowledge, skills, and abilities that we think is what they're going to want. And then we follow that up with a synchronous discussion that is, again, very structured, as opposed to what we normally have had in our business advisory councils. We also want the businesses to predict labor market demand. It's extremely important that there be a job at the end of a career within the educational environment. In other words, you want to have a career in business and industry once you're through with the degrees. So it's very, very important that we know what the labor market demand is. Fortunately, in most areas across the United States, labor market demand is high. So that's not really a problem, but it's probably not always going to be high in all programs. We also want to meet with the businesses at least 2 or 3 other times annually. Why do we do that? We do that to talk about trends, to report on what we're doing at our colleges, and also to deepen our relationship with our businesses. If you only see your businesses a couple of times a year, it's actually no wonder that they might not be as engaged as you would like. For faculty are still in charge of curriculum. They are definitely always invited to attend the KSA meetings. However, at the KSA meeting, we ask them to be active listeners and questioners, or people who answer questions for the BILT team, because we want to hear what the businesses want, and we definitely don't want to defend anything that we have on a college level. We want to be open-minded and listen to what the businesses want to hire. Once the meeting is over, the prioritized KSAs from the pro forma list are mapped by the faculty to existing curricula, if there is any existing curricula, and there always will be some, even if it's a new program, to determine any gaps and to figure out coverage, whether it's covered at an intro level or a thorough level for each of the KSAs. Then faculty diligently try to update curriculum to address the prioritized KSAs that the businesses need. That does not mean that they can always address every single thing that the businesses want. And that's something that they bring back in a feedback meeting for the businesses and the faculty to work together regarding implementation challenges and possibilities. Next slide. This is a picture that's actually quite old. This is before we had our voting that is online. But I like this picture especially because what you see there is essentially what we do now, even though that at this point we are able to come back together. The whole process is to have the business people be the main people that are communicating and voting. And you can see them around the U. You can also see me painstakingly counting how many 1s and 2s and 3s and 4 votes we actually have gotten on the KSAs. Much, much easier now that we don't have to count all that. But I'd also like to point out that the faculty are around the room. They could be at the U if you had a room that was big enough, that would be fine. But also it's very important, notice that conference phone in the middle. That is an essential element. People are more and more busy now that we're coming out of COVID. But that does not mean that people have lots of time for traveling over to your campus. So sometimes you'll find that some of the very people that you need to have involved, even if they're local, I'm in the DFW area. Some of the people that we work with are downtown. That could be an hour and a half away. And it's very important to give them the opportunity to participate virtually. I will emphasize that the businesses co-lead the work of a program, and it's amazing, amazing for them to co-lead the program to see what happens in their engagement. It's much, much deeper if they are co-leading a program than it is if they're just simply advising. They report that they're very happy to participate with us if we respect their time and appreciate their time and actually provide them feedback as to what we do with what they have told us. Next slide. Here's our annual cycle. We will go into this in great detail for those who are accepted for the BILT Academy. It starts with recruiting BILT members, and at the top of this chart, you will see that we have recruitment first. Initially, you're going to need to recruit the whole team unless you already have an advisory team to work from. And I put this there, though, as part of the annual cycle, because you really do need to go back and recruit at least 1 or 2 new people annually to keep the group fresh. Plus, you're going to find turnover in your BILT members. They're going to change jobs. Maybe you find them in terms of where they landed, and maybe you don't. So you want to definitely always be recruiting new people to join your group. We do start with an orientation, which is a very short, maybe 45-minute presentation to which faculty can invite the potential BILT members so that they can understand what's involved in the BILT. It talks about the BILT model itself, and it talks about the benefits. What this orientation session does is that it makes it easier for the faculty members to recruit people because they don't have to be able to explain everything there is about the BILT, because in the BILT Academy, everyone is going to have a coach, and that coach will be involved in the orientation and can help the faculty member get started. The next meeting is the KSA analysis meeting. And again, you must prepare a pro forma list of knowledge, skills, and abilities for the business people to use for voting. We actually can help you with that, but we will seek your guidance as well in your particular area. When we conduct that meeting with you the first year, what you'll find is all of the essential elements of how to keep the meeting on time, how to make it very effective, how to keep the discussion focused so that we use a very minimal amount of time from the employers. Employers love this approach because a lot of granular detail is transmitted to the college in a very, very short time period. Then down there under the cross-reference area, that's where the faculty cross-reference the prioritized KSAs to existing curriculum and determine what they want to do with any recommendations. that have been made. Then we have a feedback meeting to share those results with the business. Anything that we can't do as a college, we discuss and we problem solve together. Additionally, there will be 1 or 2 more meetings called trends meetings. And those trends meetings focus on the longer term horizon, 3 to 5 years out. What kinds of things do the business people see coming down the pike that we as educators need to know about? Because any advance warning that we can get allows us to be more effective in modifying our curriculum to meet their needs. And you'll notice expanding engagement is there in the green over on the left-hand side. And that's only after we've been through several meetings with these folks. We do not go to them with our hands out saying, we want you to do internships. We want you to do mock interviews. We want you to do apprenticeships or any of the other things that we would like to have our business people do. We don't usually ask for that, at least not of the whole group, until they've been through and they have received what I call the WIFM, the what's in it for me, from their business perspective, from being a part of this process. BILT members often participate because they need to widen that pipeline of qualified individuals to take the various open jobs positions that they have. Next slide. Okay, how does the BILT benefit folks? Next slide. It's actually pretty easy because the BILT members feel that they own the program or co-own the program. They're likely to seek the graduates first. They're engaged. They will seek your program participants, your students, for internships even before they complete. And by the way, I always make sure they understand that if they hire someone in the middle of their program, the business is committed to helping that person finish. The BILT members will also mentor students either individually or as a group. And the BILT members will actually help with events. Next slide. Faculty benefit as well. I believe that all faculty want to teach exactly what is going to make their students most employable. The BILT members serve as guest speakers. They assist with recruitment events, both on campus and off. And the BILT members will alert faculty about trends so that we can get a head start on curriculum changes. They also often provide free or reduced cost professional development. The National IT Center, which is the National Convergence Technology Center, runs an intense faculty training institute every summer. And every summer we have 1 or 2 of the 6 tracks that are paid for and provided by our BILT members. BILT members also often provide externships for the faculty so that the faculty can keep up with what's going on in the industry. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, and of course the BILT benefits the employers because it widens their pipeline of job-ready candidates. They also can develop relationships with one another. I always put small, medium, and large businesses on BILT teams, even the national team, because a lot of our people, our graduates, are hired, in fact, by the small and medium-sized businesses. And people who are involved in small and medium-sized businesses also benefit from the relationships with those, especially that are coming from larger businesses that may have whole research staffs that are helping them with the future of their company. It also gives these people a way, the business and industry representatives, a way to substantially give back to the community in a way that makes a real difference. And assuming that you provide the feedback and appreciation for them, they are very happy to help because they know that their time is valued. I'd like to now turn it over to Debbie Davidson to finish our presentation. And please do continue to put your questions in chat. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Anne. So lots of information that we're sharing with you here, and you're probably wondering, where do we go from here and how does this all fit together? Well, let's start with who can apply for the BILT Academy. We're looking for teams from 2-year nonprofit, community, or technical colleges. And the team is made up of 3 different important people. First off, the faculty member who will serve as the team lead and the point of contact for that project team and the point of contact for your BILT coach. And we'll talk a little bit more about your coach in just a moment. Also, an administrator from the college who can support the work of that faculty member and make sure that they're able to make the right connections within their college system and outside of their college system within the community. And thirdly, an employer representative. We talked a lot about co-leadership, and what we're looking for is an employer who is committed to co-leading the work. They don't need to be an expert at that. They have to be somebody that is willing to work side by side with the faculty member, making sure that the program that you're building is going to meet not only their needs, but the needs of the employers within your region. Next slide. So there's a number of components to the BILT Academy in order to help you and support you as you go through this process. It starts with a monthly coach call. Each college that is in the academy is assigned a dedicated coach who will be with you every month as you go through the entire process, that whole life cycle that Anne shared with you. The coach is with you every step of the way to help you, support you, provide resources to you, and so on. And you would set monthly coach calls with them. And then there's monthly cohort meetings. So the colleges that are chosen to be in cohort 3 will come together once a month. And usually it is a Zoom meeting. And we share information and resources. And we also give you a chance to ask some questions that you might have and to kind of communicate with each other on challenges, questions, and sharing. And then we use Teams as a resource repository. So all of the resources that we have, there are worksheets, there are forms, there are processes, everything resides in Teams. And if you're not familiar with Teams, we even give you a tutorial on how to access them if that's not the system that you're currently using. So as I said, this is BILT Academy Cohort 3. We have done 2 cohorts so far, and I believe we're getting better with each one of them. So Cohort 3 is really in for an exciting time. We will begin the cohort in November, and it will run through next September. The applications are due this September 30th, and the details are at pathwaystoinnovation.org. Next slide. So there are some commitments to make even prior to the pre-application. So we're asking you to identify one in-demand technical program on which to focus. And we can't be too clear about this. So we're going to give some examples. Manufacturing is not a program area. That is a discipline. Welding is a program area. Machining is a program area. Likewise, IT as a large discipline is not what we're looking for. If you're going to do networking or programming or cyber, those would be the programs. They must be technical programs that are on the ATE list. So unfortunately, healthcare programs are not permitted. We are also asking you then to identify that faculty member and the administrator to lead the team and identify the employer partner. Now, the employer partner may say, I'm interested, I'm going to put my name to this and I'm willing to walk this path with you for the next 10 to 12 months. And at some point, they may decide they want to hand that off to somebody else. And that's perfectly all right. We're asking them to start the journey with you. And then we're asking you to commit to develop and implement an active, engaged employer partnership based on the BILT model. We give you a timeline to follow, and we've put that timeline together so that you and your coach, following this timeline, will be able to implement a successful BILT. It's important for you to stay on task with it, and we have tools and resources to help you do that. Next slide. Okay, so once you are actually accepted into the BILT Academy, your commitments change a little bit. We're asking you to participate in these monthly cohort meetings starting in November and running through next September. We may skip a month in the summer or we may not. It depends on how things are moving along. But those monthly cohort meetings are where all the colleges that are selected come together. And as I said, you'll learn something new. You'll learn from each other. You'll be able to share some of your incremental successes along the way. And then that schedule will be set as soon as we identify everybody that's going to be in the cohort. So you'll know those meeting dates well in advance. Then we ask you to participate in monthly coaching calls with your dedicated BILT coach. Once you are accepted, your coach will reach out to you and you will set a schedule of meeting dates at least once a month for the duration of the academy. That is where you can problem solve, you can talk through any issues or challenges you're having, any barriers, any additional support that you need, and your coach is there to help you along the way. We want you to be successful. You'll also commit to learn. We will have on-demand resources to expand your understanding of what the BILT model is all about. We know there's lots of moving parts and pieces here, and we don't expect you to know it all at the beginning. And you're going to need to go back and look at resources when you're at that point within that life cycle to make sure you understand next steps. We also ask you to commit to submitting a monthly report via a short online form. And the reason that we do this is to make sure that you are on track for success. Your coach wants to make sure that you're successful. And as a team supporting all of you, we want to make sure that we are giving you the best possible chance to have a successful BILT. And then we ask you also to commit to documenting any impact measures and lessons learned. It's very helpful for other colleges to see how have their colleagues gone through this process. What have their pitfalls been? What have their successes been? How do they work through some of the barriers that may be the same barriers that you have and get to success? Next slide. So some key dates here. The applications are due in a few short weeks, September 30th. We will then review all the applications and we will notify the applicants by October 18th if you've been accepted into cohort 3. The academy will start in November, as we said, and run through next September of 2023. Next slide. So some save the dates. If you are accepted into cohort 3, once you are notified, and you'll be notified by October 18th, there will be an orientation on November 17th at 2 o'clock Eastern time. That orientation is for the faculty member, the college administrator, and the employer partner to attend. And then the very first cohort meeting will be on December 7th at 2 p.m. We will get future dates to you once we have you at orientation. We'll talk through when the cohort meetings will be. So at this point, I'm going to ask you to, maybe we can have everybody turn their cameras on. We're going to open it up for questions. I know some people have been putting questions in chat, which is great. Please continue to do so. So maybe we want to, let me just take a look at some of the questions that we have here. I know one person asked, would Zoom work rather than a conference phone? Would that be acceptable? Absolutely. We've been using Zoom for many of these meetings. And Anne, maybe you want to talk a little bit to the hybrid nature of how we've been doing the meetings.
Sure. The conference phone, we typically do dial the conference phone into the Zoom meeting. What we have found is that the audio is a little bit better when we do it that way. So we actually do a combo here. We have been doing the BILT since way before Zoom ever was even thought about. And when we did it at the very beginning, it was totally audio if we had remote visitors. So it's very nice that we now have Zoom to link to. Someone also asked how many colleges we're going to accept this year. It's 12. And then we have at least one more cohort that we're going to work with in another year. There was also a question, who facilitates? Who facilitates the KSA meeting? That actually can depend on your college. Those colleges that are accepted into the BILT Academy, though, you get me to help co-facilitate for the very first KSA meeting, along with whoever we have discussed would be the appropriate person to carry on facilitation, because I will use that as more or less a training ground to help the college person learn how to facilitate these meetings. It's extremely important to keep these meetings on time. What we did not underscore, for example, is if we say our meeting is 2.5 hours, at the 2.5 hour mark, first of all, we try to get through early because no one gets upset when you give them time back. However, at the 2.5 hour mark, if we're not finished, we finish up through email. We never go past the time. What questions do you have? I think you could probably come off mute and just ask them.
Mhm.
I can't believe all the questions are answered for you. There's no way. Come on, don't be bashful.
I did say we're getting better with every cohort, but we haven't figured out every question you might ask.
No, not at all. Okay, I'm going to ask another question. What concerns you about this approach? Does anybody have a question about that?
I don't really have a concern about it. My concern is more the ability of my institution to engage. And so that's why I don't have much for questions, because I'm here more for fact finding than anything else. Name's Jason Jones from Hennepin Technical College out here on the West Metro in Minnesota.
Well, if you in fact are doing a business advisory council, this is a replacement for a business advisory council or an augmentation to how you are currently doing your business advisory councils. So there actually should not be too many problems in terms of ability to engage in this sort of thing. Some people do think that the BILT model is a replacement. It kind of is and it kind of isn't. It's really the Business Advisory Council, literally on steroids, where you really up the engagement level with your employers.
I'll jump in with a question. It's good to see you again, Ann, by the way. I saw you in Salt Lake. Good to see you again.
Great.
The question is this intended to be a pilot in which you would test it and then with the hopes of rolling it out to other programs at your college?
It can be. Many colleges have in fact done it like that, where that they have us help with one program and then they learn enough during that time period how to move out to other programs. I have one college in Missouri. I actually helped them with their first, two. But that was actually before PTI. And then they're right now moving out. I think they're out to 6 different programs now. So it would be ideal if you can learn enough so that you have someone at the college that can kind of spearhead the effort to move it across the CTE programs at the college. It works beautifully.
Quick follow-up question. After you go through, assuming that you got involved in this process and after you finish it, what type of ongoing support does a college have?
You mean from the grant?
Or from, I know this is a one-year engagement. Is there any additional engagement beyond the year?
There is a BILT community of practice where those who are graduates of the BILT Academy are allowed, well, not only allowed, encouraged to communicate with one another and also encouraged to continue communicating with us. If there are issues that come beyond the first year, we have in the past provided a little bit of support for the second year. But what really happens in general is that the colleges can answer each other's questions after the first year. At least that's our goal overall. We do know that sometimes the actual staff members or faculty members change and there are issues that come up. So there is limited support beyond the first year. The intensity from the grant support is for the first year.
But I will say too, to follow up on that, Ryan, the resources that are made available to you while you're participating in the cohort remain to be available to you after you graduate.
For sure. Well, and even more than that, we just made a commitment today in a meeting that I've been having with Debbie and Hope that we are going to put the new resources in the BILT community of practice for anybody who happened to participate in years 1 and 2, or, you know, if we're in year 4, it would be the ones that participated in year 3. So not only is it what you had while you were doing it, it would be augmented as you go along. What else?
Would you be able to provide us or go over some data that you've collected over the last 2 cohorts to show success rates and whatnot versus, you know, anecdotal, but ones that maybe have some review background or assessment to kind of back up what it sounds great, but I'd like to kind of know some of the success rates and stuff like that in implementation.
Yes, we can do that. However, I will tell you that most of the really powerful data is anecdotal. It is descriptive data. Each college has different, in some cases, they want to align curriculum. That's their major goal. In some cases, they want to develop really tight relationships with the employers for the purposes of ensuring that they have internships and apprenticeships. In some cases, they want to deepen those relationships to make sure they have more adjunct professors. The goal from going through this can vary by college. We do have a whole litany of benefits. I can share with you some examples. Again, a lot of it is still going to be anecdotal, but I will say, for example, that one college that I started working with in cybersecurity, in fact, it is a very large college. They ended up working with a BILT team to put their cybersecurity program together 3 years ago. And now they actually have over 500 students in that program. The BILT members are very active. They help present, they help recruit students, they hire the students. It's amazing. It's very, very cool. That same college is doing a program that is in a very brand new area. We don't have results yet, but we have designed an entire program in artificial intelligence based on the BILT model. So there are lots of differences in terms, are there research level results? Not really. It's mostly descriptive because the benefits vary based on the college and what they need.
I will add that we have had successful launches, though. All of our cohorts, all of our teams have been able to launch their BILTs, and growing them and sustaining them is really the key thing. That's where what we're really looking towards in terms of long-term sustainability. And hopefully that's what we're offering with the TA that's available through the Academy, is to set you up for that success that Debbie talked about earlier.
I'll also throw in one more thing. I have been a dean in 2 states and a vice president in 1. And I will say that I've been at big colleges, I've been at little colleges, and the little colleges especially, once they have a strong business team, it's great to have that business team lead innovation. If you're in a technical program, it is going to absolutely have to be changed on an ongoing basis to keep up with industry. I mean, it just has to be. One of the problems that a smaller college has is, okay, so we've got the business people telling us what we need. Sometimes we don't have the funding to support what they're wanting us to do. It might be curricular, it might be lab related, it might be recruiting related, diversity related, all sorts of different things. We also run a sister program through the Pathways to Innovation program that provides mentoring for those who would like to learn how to write competitive National Science Foundation Advanced Technological Education Program grants. My vision is to pair a very active business team for a given technical area with the expertise to write NSF ATE grants that are competitive, so that there is a hope of getting the money to be able to fund whatever the business team's innovation ideas might be. So if you've heard of other programs about mentoring, I've been mentoring for a good 10 years at this point, and have a I have a very decent success rate, and we have a whole team of mentors who can also help you. That is the Grant Seekers Academy, and we won't actually be taking applications for that until later in the fall. Question? I cannot believe we've answered all your questions.
I'm going to share an email that you can contact should you remember some questions that you have later today. BILT@cord.org comes to all of us. So Debbie, Ann, and I can answer your questions as they arise. You can always gather more information from the Pathways to Innovation website and the BILT Academy webpage. And if you're interested, we can always link you up with active cohort members who can share their experiences.
Sure. Happy to do that. Last chance. Any more questions? Well, I hope you have a very pleasant afternoon, and thank you for taking your time and spending it with us. And I hope you do apply, and I hope we are able to accept you into the BILT Academy. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.